I'm really excited to welcome Sherry Steele here from one of our investees. Sherry is a member of the Peoria Tribe of Indians of Oklahoma, and would love to ask her to do a land acknowledgement and reflection on why this is an important practice for all of us on this call. Sherry is with the United Indians of All Tribes Foundation since March 2018, and she works in the finance department as an accountant and is also in charge of major building projects with Daybreak Star. United Indians joined the SVP portfolio just this past year. We're super excited to have them here with us and to kick us off with this land acknowledgement. So with that, Sherry, I'd love to hand over to you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Aya, Iwamili Okoki, Pika Alamwa, Wayne's Vianney, Sherry Steele, Wayne's Vianney. Ila Piki Siani, Judah Steele, Ninkia, George Sky, Nemsahuma, Jesse Sky, Asako Sali, Alquatwa, Asako Sali. Wiantanan, Piawalia, Miamiaki, Ilanai, Niwinsuni. Pika Alamwa Tapalentioni, Nahati Hioni, Ila Pikisiani Miamia, Viantanan Piawalia, Algonkian, Kwakia, Myth to Sniaki Tanaha Katia Wiki. Hello, my relatives. I am called Pika Alamwa, Sherry Steele. I am descended from Judah Steele, of George Sky, of Jesse Sky, of Alquatwa, Cloudy Sky. I am Wea Indian of the Peoria Tribe of Indians of Oklahoma. I give honor and love to all my ancestors of the Wiantanan, Peoria, Miami, Algonquian, and Kwakia who came before, and of all who will come after. My people, the Wea, were forcibly relocated to Missouri lands in 1763, and again to Kansa and Quapaw lands in 1832 after the United States broke treaties made with our Peoria Confederacy. We were then moved to Miami, Oklahoma in 1867 to a small reserve after the Kansa reserve land was taken from us. The Oklahoma land was then given to settlers during the land rush. I would like to acknowledge that my tribe respects and honors the lands we were moved to, and respects and honors the struggle, fight, and lands of the Lushootseed speaking tribes. Thank you for allowing me to work for you and with you on your sacred land. We are here today to discuss land use, finances, and meet together as peoples with similar goals. Land to Indians is not an inanimate commodity to be used and transferred by humans. We people are here for a short time. The land was here before us, and we will return to its embrace once we pass. Land is ancient and familiar territory. Animate, communal, our source of life, which we inhabit for a brief time in a reciprocal social and spiritual relationship. We must steward our relationship with the land with respect, honor, and the greatest of care. In the words of Ananan Whedon, a Mashpee Wampanoag Indian, makes clear most of the Indian perspective of colonization and reparations. His words, and I quote, "How do you pay somebody for that? The most valuable thing anyone can have or possess ever is time, and you don't get that time back. I don't get my ancestors back. It's degrading to think that you could buy your way out of what you put us in. Actions speak for themselves. Clean up your community, show some respect, pay the land the respect. It's never about me, it's about the land. I am only here for a short time. This land has to last a lot longer. Your children are going to have to inherit this. What do you want to leave them? Let's look about our children and how our children's lives are going to turn out, because if we can't get things to go better for them, we have all failed." The Coast Salish peoples have a tradition of entering sacred spaces with the best of intentions. For instance, this means not entering a talking circle without first being right with how one is in the world to one's best ability. It also means that those other people within the circle and without must acknowledge all within the circle of having their best intent, no matter the grandeur or poverty of their regalia, their education level, blood quantum, or any of the other ways in which people judge one another. We must enter the circle with good intentions. I invite you, as relatives with the best of intentions, to enter this circle today and to begin each meeting, whether Indians are present or no, with the guiding principle of stewardship of the lands in the small amount of time we are given. Ping te kilo nihi, wita pilumi I winyakiwi. Come and sit together in gratitude. Mishanewe. Thank you.
Well, thanks go to you, Sherry. Thank you so much for that call to action and for bringing us all together around that the land acknowledgement to start us off. I think for everyone on this call as partners, this is United Indians of All Tribes Foundation is one of our investees, as we said earlier. And as you look at the call to action that Sherry just ran us through, I think this is why we're here. We come together around these common issues. And I'm really proud that we were able to start off with that before we jump into the rest of our content today. So thank you, Sherry. As a SVP, I always say in our board meetings that I always think of SVP as social venture partners. Those are the three parts of us. And we just focused on the social part to start off. And now we want to focus on the partnership part. Normally when we're in virtual or in normal events, we all would have been mingling at the start, catching up with friends, making new ones, really coming together as a partnership, whether you're a community leader, a partner within our partnership or part of our ventures. What we want to do is do a little bit of virtual networking through that. So everyone is going to be assigned out to breakout rooms. I think at this point in the COVID times, everyone's done a Zoom breakout room at least once. You'll be assigned out into groups of 4 for 5 minutes. What we'd ask you to do is run through your name, pronouns, your connection SVP, and really what are you looking most forward to in 2021, especially with regards to your engagement and work with SVP. We're going to be talking more about how we're reimagining SVP Seattle and really want to get the juices flowing about what you want to get out of your experience and how you want to impact your community. So with that, our team will be moving us to breakout rooms and we will see you in 5 minutes. I've been a partner at SVP for only 4 years. So I've been here 25 to 20%, depending on the math you want to do. And through all that, we've been in transition. And so as we look at this year, this is really a reimagine, reinvent, and move forward year for ourselves. And really it's a make or break year for us in terms of how do we reinvigorate our community impact. All of you on, and I see 67 of us on this call today, that's the core of what we, how we have that impact, both the community leaders that are seeking help, the partners that come together to give the help and learn from each other, and the common learning journey that we have to go together. And so today what we really wanted to do was ground you in sort of the key elements of how this is going to look over the next year. We don't have all the answers, and we also are really in the learning and listening mode still, learning from our new leader, Emiko. I'm excited to have her really run through what she's learned in her first 100 days. Can't believe it's been 100 days already. And also with our number of leaders, but from our exiting investees as well as from our network. And so really what today is about is really focusing on some space to reflect where we've been, but more importantly, where we're headed. And I'm excited to introduce a couple guests to help us go on that journey. We're going to hear from, as I said, network leadership at SVPI. We're going to talk about some of the visioning for SVP Seattle from our new ED, Emiko. And then we're going to hear from our exiting investees about to not only celebrate what they've done in the journey that they've been on with us, but also to talk more about the impact that they've had in their community. So with that, I'm going to be exiting stage left, and I'm really excited to introduce Sudha Nandagopal, who is the CEO for SVP International. Sudha is a connector, strategist, and movement builder working at the intersection of racial and social justice, and she examines power shifts, systems of power and shifts of power outward in the most affected communities by issues of inequity and injustice. She joined SVP International as the CEO last year in February, and I personally have learned a ton from my engagement with her, both from a coaching and mentorship perspective, and I'm really excited to have her here. So Sudha, ready to hand it over to you.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And thank you all for having me here today. I wish I was in person with everyone. So I'm here in South Seattle and excited to share a little bit about the global network. I'm Sudha. I've been CEO of Social Venture Partners International since February of 2019. And, you know, just so we all are on the same page, a quick reminder, of course, that we are a global network. So everything that happens in Seattle has reverberations around the globe. We have 3,500 partners, and we are in 43 affiliates. Philadelphia is our newest affiliate, and they're doing some great work. So before we dive in too far, I first just want to say, you know, thank you to Emiko and Bob. Both of you are such incredible leaders and leading this organization through transition in a year like this year. If you all haven't done this in the chat, I hope you are applauding Bob and Emiko for the work that they've been doing and the staff of SVP Seattle, because it's really critical and it's been really exemplary. So please just continue to shower them with lots of love for what they're doing. And I'm super excited to be partnering with you all in this work. So let me just dive into it, because I know we don't have a ton of time together. Want to talk a little bit about where we are right now in this moment and where we're headed, and help you understand a little bit about the network context as we also make a strategic transition. Next. So I think many of you come to SVP likely the way I do, which is because you're concerned about the state of the world, right? And in fact, we have some really big questions ahead of us right now. Next. As we all know, and we experienced over the last many years, we have seen this incredible rise in polarization, obviously isolation, rise in nationalized viewpoints. Next. And this continued challenge of wealth and power concentration growing. You know, to give you some context, Amazon earnings last quarter were up 40% with net profits of $5 billion. But I'm sure, like me, you all are seeing the daily closures of small businesses. So many folks are struggling right now. There is just huge inequities in our world, and these are present not just in the US, but around the globe. Next. And that's also in the context of what we all experienced firsthand here in Seattle with the climate devastation and the real continued impacts. But of course, that hits hardest for our communities of color, for Black, Indigenous, and the global South especially. Next. And that's also all in this context of COVID-19, right? Which is bringing to light the disparity in all sorts of ways. And we heard when we talked to donors across the network in the spring, people were saying over and over to us, what are we going to do as a network? We have to change. We have to do something different. I'm seeing now what I haven't seen before, and I'm seeing the magnification of the inequities in my community. Next. Momentary puppy pause, because every time we talk about all these dire things, I think it's important to reflect that there's also some hopeful things ahead. Next. So one thing is just, you know, thinking about the role of philanthropy in this moment, right? Philanthropy is supposed to help address these issues, and often it does. Next. But the reality is big philanthropy really hasn't figured it out. So, and I know many of you in this room have read Edgar Villanueva's book, you've read Anand Giridhara's, you've been talking about equity in your own journey at SVP. And one of the things we know is, like, we've thought we had a solution. And in recent years, it's become increasingly clear that even big philanthropy hasn't figured it all out. The social issues we've tried to impact, unemployment, environment, education, health, poverty, these continue to disproportionately impact communities of color. And we need to do more, and we need to do it faster to really have the changes that we need to see in the world. Next. And it's, you know, frankly, not just about how much money we have, it's also about where that money is going. Not enough of that money is getting to communities of color. I think that's the simplest way for us to say that. Next. And a lot of the money is getting stuck in large institutions that aren't necessarily the places that are closest to the work, right? When we think about the value of SVP and how we carry forward that notion of proximity and accountability, often the folks who are most proximate and most accountable to the challenges and actually being able to address those challenges, those are people who are running small organizations and are really the sort of frontline folks. Next. So in my view, in the view of many of us across the SVP network, it's time for us to step into this question of what does systems change really look like, and what are we doing now that we know that existing philanthropic models are behind the times? Next. So let's not forget that social venture partners, folks like all of you in Seattle, been ahead of the game. We have 2 decades of global experience trying to disrupt these problems. Next. We have these practices that have been really core to our work, and actually we've managed to influence the sector with some of these practices, right? The multi-year commitments, general operating support, those are just no-brainers now for many in philanthropy. But there's still more to be done. And I think rightly so. I've talked to many of you, I've talked to partners across the globe. The question that keeps coming up is, are we moving the needle? Next. So let's talk about a few of the emerging trends that we have an opportunity to think about in this moment, right? Digital giving is up huge amounts. 2/3 of that online giving is coming from women. Concerns about systems change, that's global. Concerns about racial justice and wanting to influence racial justice, global. Giving Tuesday now just reported on their recent day of giving, and they said they saw an increase from 1.97 billion last year to 2.47 billion this year. That's a 25% increase just in the US alone in 1 day of giving. At the same time, we're also seeing like all this mutual aid, all this generosity, supporting of local businesses, right? Giving is going through a transformation in this moment. Next. It doesn't come without some concerns though, right? Movement leaders are rightfully worried that there are problematic dynamics appearing, right? That people are putting in a lot of money right now while this is hot and while there is disaster, it's kind of that disaster relief moment. But we need to make sure that we are there for the rebuilding. These are our communities we're going to have to rebuild together. This money needs to be accountable. We need to continue that proximity. We need to make sure that we aren't just letting a bunch of individual action go away, but rather it's being funneled into collective action, which is again, really where SVP, that's our sweet spot. Next. So what's possible now that wasn't possible before? First, I just have to say this again. You have Emiko, who is this, sector leader, talented woman of color with decades of experience. So I hope you all are really excited for her leadership. And one of the most critical things you can do is trust her leadership. As a new leader in philanthropy in this moment, what she can do is really see right now some of the things that we might have all normalized that we don't see because we've been in it, right? So I really encourage you to dial in to listen to that perspective that can help us shape a really upgraded strategy and accelerate our network's impact. Next. And to bring us together to ask the questions of, how can we reimagine sharing of power and wealth? Next. How can we reimagine who sets the agenda? As you've all begun to already in SVP Seattle. Next. Thinking about action and solidarity around the globe. What does it mean to not just be a donor, but to step in as one of many who are really trying to change systems towards justice? Next. And thinking about the economic models, right? We know right now that many of us sit with economic power and we can be voices for change, for an economic model that does build our communities, does connect us all better, and actually makes more of our communities able to thrive. Next. And so this is what Reimagine Giving is all about. And this is what the network is about. We're recentering our founding values, collective giving, proximity, and accountability, and doing those well and making them really relevant to this moment as they intersect with questions of systems change, of philanthropy, and of equity. Next. So Reimagine Giving, just really in short here, is a platform for partners, new donors to join the network, and for affiliates, like all of you, to collaborate and to co-create events and learning that will help us amplify our values, change philanthropy, and do things that no one affiliate can do by itself. It's also a fund for the movement, so we can catalyze collectively more resources, both financial resources, but also other ways of sharing power towards systemic change. And just to name, SVP Seattle nominated one of our inaugural recipients of the Reimagine Fund. So just want to say congratulations to you all on making that happen. It's allowed us already as a network to kind of begin to shift the flow of resources where we can be helping move more resources to the local work. And we want to unlock even more of that. So you've all already been on a journey as partners to engage around equity and systems change. And I want to make sure we can lift that up for the global network and really accelerate that work to enable even more power sharing and shifting. So really, this is our opportunity to be leaders, not just for Seattle, but for the movement and for donors and partners across SVP. And we want to make sure that SVP is really here to serve the world and answering the call from our movements about what's needed from philanthropists. So I just want to name, this is a super exciting moment. I've given you a very quick synopsis here. So I encourage you all to go check out the website, reimaginegiving.org. This is our chance to lean into change that we all want to do together in partnership and really make SVP a more powerful and influential community for our movement and for our systems. And it's with this in mind that I just want to close by really naming specifically, there has not been a more critical time for you to make a significant gift to SVP Seattle. And no one asked me to do this, but I'm going to say it because it's my responsibility as a network leader to just let you know that if you can, in this month, write an extra check to SVP Seattle that accelerates and amplifies Emiko's new leadership, the new direction that you all are stepping into, that is just critical wind behind the wings of change, right? We need partners to step up and say, yes, this is the direction, and give us the forward momentum so that we can create the next steps and figure out what that looks like together. So I hope you'll join us in that effort and in Reimagine Giving, both at the local level and at the network level. And I really hope that you will just jump right in with SVP Seattle, even more than you have already. And so just want to say thank you all for the time, for all you do for SVP, and for all you do to make our community stronger. And I know I leave the elephant as our closing thought. And I can happily entertain questions offline at any point. So Bob and Emiko, back to you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sudha, for that call to action and for running us through the frame of how things are changing here in our community as well as at the international level. And as happens always with virtual stuff, of course, my kids are printing their homework as I'm talking. So there we go. So thank you so much for that. I will say, like, just being able to collaborate with the other board chairs and seeing how they're changing themselves, how they're moving forward their agendas, it's reinvigorating as well as a call to action for us to continue to lead as a network. And lead as an affiliate within the network. And I really appreciate the frame that you've created for us that we can then activate down into Seattle. And with that, I would love to hand it over to Emiko to take us through where we're going to go for our visions, SVP Seattle, building off of the Reimagine framing from the network. Emiko, over to you.
Thanks so much, Bob. And just huge thanks to Sudha to follow that. I can truly say that SVP Seattle wouldn't be where it was today, and I certainly wouldn't be where I am today without her support. So just like huge thank you. And also, one of the reasons that we invited Sudha to speak and talk about the Reimagine Giving work and really the work that SVPI is doing is it's really the larger frame for a lot of the deep thinking, but also action that we plan to bring to the partnership next year. Our partnership, the SVP Seattle partnership. I've been on the job just a few days over 4 months. I actually started August 3rd, so I got to count up to the 100 days. And I don't know what comes after. There's not a catchy phrase after 100 days. But I spent most of those first months really in deep conversation with many of you. So it's so fun to come back now in December and see your faces again, some of which I haven't seen since August, and some that I still look forward to meeting. I see some of you, John Clements, we have a meeting next week where we get to talk for the first time. but really deep listening about really where SVP Seattle has been, where we are, and really the potential ahead, and really keeping in mind all that Sudha spoke about, what is going on in the world, and what is our call to action. And so what I wanted to cover is how are we, and when I say we, I mean really all of the partnership, but right now this is led by the board of directors and myself, moving into next year and reimagining our own work. So I'm going to cover really where we've been and where we are, really what I learned in my first 100 days, but what we all feel is so important that we need to address next year, and how we plan to do that. And so Natalie, next slide, please. So I wanted to talk about where we've been. So SVP has been doing phenomenal work for over 2 decades, and you can move to the next slide, Natalie. Sudha really shared a lot of the transformative work we've done around multi-year giving, collective action, shared learning. And this has all been in service of our current vision and mission. And that is really that we are connecting and investing in organizations, but also in people to really co-create thriving, sustainable, and just communities. And that we live in a region where everyone thrives regardless of income or race. And this has really been the umbrella from which we have done, this is the vision and mission in which we've done that work, in which so many of you have been involved. We are more than just giving wealth, but giving our time and our energy, and really have contributed greatly to the ecosystem of change in the Puget Sound. Next slide. This again just covers how we've really gone beyond philanthropy. And what I learned, and when I'm coining my listening tour, is that we really have done some groundbreaking work in philanthropy for the region. People repeatedly, many of you stated your learning journeys, really transformative educational journeys. How we were some of the first in the region. And I think we started, from a place of presumption, and really had to learn from that and learn about what it means to be in relationship with community. The capacity building we've been able to do in partnership with our investees while we're doing that community building. And we are known for this. And that, really, I spoke with many of you who have joined us today, people within the partnership, but also just community leaders who are so grateful for the work that we've done, for the connections that they built, and really the lifelong relationships that they now have because of SVP Seattle. Next slide. Which brings us to where we are now. I think Sudha set us up perfectly for where we are now. Really couching in, there's not something going on just at the national, but really at the global level that's impacting philanthropy. This year exemplifies it. It is challenging what we know and who we want to be, really, as a country, but as individuals as well. At the same time, this has been a challenging time for SVP Seattle. And it didn't just start this year. We have, and this is not a surprise to any of you, been in transition for 5 years. And we have been graced by so many creative and excited leaders. But it is hard on any organization to have 5 executive directors in 5 years, in part because all of the visions and the energy they brought had to shift a little as each new leader came in. And I own that. I absolutely own that as your newest leader, is that we all bring our ideas. This is why we take the job. But that it's hard to maintain focus. We are a small but mighty organization. And so how you maintain focus when you're shifting transitions a lot. This is all happening in a time where we are having more profound questions about wealth and power and race, and what does it mean to be a partner, and what does it mean to be a philanthropist. And that's really brought us to the moment today where you're really in concert with the work that SVPI is doing. And I think philanthropy as a whole is figuring out, how do we meet not just this moment, but how can we reimagine ourselves and transform so that we can have the greatest impact on what I call the ecosystem of change, but what needs to happen. Not just into the Puget Sound, but to really be leaders within the SVP network. and yet still keep and be true to kind of what makes us unique and special and different than any other organization. And how do we balance that in a time where there's a high sense of urgency? I think there is an urgency at the political level, at the social level, and then just basically, with my manager hat on at the managerial level to make sure that I can, right the ship really quickly. And how do you balance that sense of urgency with doing really careful and strategic and meaningful, impactful work? And so what I'm going to do today is really kind of walk through what we have arrived at and where we want to go in partnership with all of you. So next slide. Right now, as part of this Reimagine 2020 work, we're really taking stock of our business model, the programs and operations, so that we're looking at from a sustainability, but also a racial equity lens. And I say that meaning, can we exist? Can we be truly an anti-racist organization and operate with our current business model? And in a way that, since Paul, the partnership has ebbed and flowed, but that we actually grow the partnership in a fiscally sustainable way. This year has been particularly hard, I think, on all nonprofit budgets, and we are not exempt. And so how do we stabilize our resources and actually grow to have the impact that we want? We've taken very meaningful incremental steps on racial equity. There have been, I see some of you who are on our first Diversity and Equity and Inclusion Committee many years ago, to a newly formed board racial equity committee that Robert White, who's joining us to hear, is saying, but how do we actually not just take steps and bring a lens of racial equity to our work, but we actually start to transform our DNA so that everything that we do is with an anti-racist intention in mind. How do we really learn from the amazing network of SVP and the SVP Reimagine Fund? How do we identify the imperatives we must address? So this has all come up to, in Sudha's presentation, did such a phenomenal job of really bringing about some of the global challenges, but internally, the board of directors and really the partnership has really discussed and I think volleyed some what we call big rock questions internally. One of them might be, one of the first ones I was introduced to in my interview process was, are we a church or are we a university? Meaning, are we a place of lifelong learning or somewhere that you graduate? Should we continue to call everyone a partner and keep our, financial minimum? And how do we feel about that? Should we or should we not advocate for systems change? These are conversations that long predate me and many people on the current board. And we feel like it's imperative that we answer a few of those next year to move forward and truly be who the community needs us to be. And then how, when we're doing this, is this all through a partner-informed process? How do we work with all of you? Because this is at a core a partnership. And so with that, what I wanted to do is really walk through those imperatives and share where we're going to go. So what we feel like is incredibly important to address next year is that we must, and I'll read these, but I'll walk through which each of these mean. We must cement anti-racism into our work. We can no longer be, and I think, a huge nod and bow to the work that's been done, but that we truly must cement it in our work. We must be a visible advocate for change. And when I say that, and it means that we cannot live our vision of a just and equitable Puget Sound without also taking a stand in what we really believe is what I refer to as the operating environment, that it's not enough just to give our money, but that we have to look at the policies and powers and structures that actually set up the world that we operate in and use our power to influence that as well. We should demand more from ourselves. We need to elevate the community as leaders and co-creators and renew our business model. So what that means, if you could move to the next slide, Natalie, to cement anti-racism. And I talked about this is we must take concrete actions to advance anti-racism in our work. This last year, I think I have seen more conversations and more frankness about anti-racism that I've ever seen. And yet there is a risk that I think these conversations could become performative, but that also that we rush too quickly into doing things, and yet we must take concrete actions to advance anti-racism with all in our work. And, you know, again, I go back to the DNA. It's like you can switch out. I have many different sunglasses because I am here in Seattle, and every day there's a sunny day. You have to buy one, and then of course we lose them for 2 weeks. And I have the largest sunglass collection. They're all under $20 because I have so many, but they have different lenses, and those lenses allow me to see the world differently. But it doesn't fundamentally change my vision. And that really the work that we need to do within SVP Seattle is change that DNA, that we don't get to take those lenses on and off. And so that means changing it could be changing how we do our decision-making, our grant making, our capacity building, our board composition, board decision-making structure, staffing structure, but that must be addressed at the beginning of the year. Next slide. That we are a visible advocate. And this is really that we cannot be neutral. And this group, this partnership, the collective action and ability of this partnership is phenomenal. And that we cannot be neutral on issues and advocate for social change. We have to be able to influence the operating environment and this ecosystem of change, so that the work that we're doing is in support of larger systems change. Next slide. We need to demand more from ourselves, and this is really, you know, a continuation of advocating for more. But what can we give up in that sharing of power? Is it sharing of power? Is it actually shifting of power? Next slide. And that we have to elevate the community. We can no longer have a world where there are where there is a top-down relationship in philanthropy. We have to truly consider everyone a partner. We have to open ourselves more fundamentally to the direction and positive potential of the communities we serve, in moving power and increasing engagement. And so we must, you know, continue to co-power the communities that we work with. And then next slide. We have to really return to what I call being a partner-centric model instead of a donor-centric model. And what I mean in that is we are an organization that is driven by the power and potential and really the difficult discussions and work of the partnership, but that we don't have programs at the whims of one donor, or that we don't do things because a small group of people in philanthropy demand it, but that really we are returning to what makes this organization so special. And it allows us to not rely on the charity of those we aim to challenge, develop, and transform to sustain our programs. And I always like to use Bob because Bob doesn't do this at all, but in a really practical way, this means just because Bob is a partner, he can't call up and threaten to leave because he doesn't like one grant we gave. We have to be able to stand. We have to be a partnership, but not to jump the minute one donor says jump. And this is really what we need within a business model to truly live our mission. So next slide. I want to go into detail kind of with all of you on this, and I don't want to take away from the time of the rest of our speakers, but what I wanted to share with you is that we are solid on these imperatives, and I will share this with all of you after, we'll follow up and share this presentation. We have answered those 5 questions, but what we want to do with you is this is really the beginning of a discussion. Where we want to redefine our value proposition. How can we most uniquely contribute in the ecosystem of change in the Puget Sound? How do we move philanthropy? How do we better ourselves? How do we really do that meaningful work? And how are we at SVP really unique and bring a value that no one else does? We want to refine our imperatives with you and refresh our business model. So really what I call out to is what we're bringing to you is the first time that you all and that we are sharing publicly what we feel must be addressed, and that we want to work with you to do these 3 things. So I will send out communications in ways you can engage on an individual level, but on a group level as we figure these out. But we are so excited And we do plan to, I would say we plan to move quickly in service of the community, but also in a way that incorporates everyone's voices. This organization, one of the things that I've learned is part of being in deep transition for 5 years means that at some point you have to just answer the questions and take a leap of faith and test some ideas out. So, I also ask for you to give feedback, but also all of us grace, because we may try things that don't work, but we know that we've tried them. We're going to test hypotheses, really not just on the programmatic level, but that innovation and incubation campaign that we brought to some of our programming this fall, we're really bringing to our mission and our value proposition. And within that, I'm working with the board to create a culture where we are going to test out these ideas and really, stop just navel gazing, but move forward. But we want to do this in partnership with all of you. So I'm so excited to continue these conversations. Again, this is the beginning, and you are the first public audience to see this. So this is not a published plan that will go out, but the beginning of a conversation that I'm excited for all of us to have. And so please, if you do not hear my mass email in the next, because I'm not going to send it till next week, I invite you to just send me an individual email in the meantime. And I want to just say this is really in deep gratitude to the board, who has really just been so incredibly supportive as we've really had to fast track these answers. Again, in service of ourselves and the community, and, really in a way blow up a lot of the norms I know about nonprofit, like how nonprofits work and process. We're really, we feel like, we are excited to kind of move us out of transition and move forward. So thank you so much. And back to you, Bob.
Awesome. Thank you, Emiko. And just taking a pause, inspirational. I look at where we're at and where we've been, and, having been a partner that's basically been here the entire time through transition, I think to your point about taking a stake in the ground, especially during these times where the community is demanding and needing it from us, as Sudha said, is hugely important. So I love where we're headed. I'm inspired by it, and I hope you all are able to digest all this. I know we put a lot out there, so there will be more information coming out, as Emiko said, and really just excited to have her lead us into this next phase and really activate on the vision and the imperatives that we've put together over 5 years. It's really exciting to ground in that and go forward. So with that, we wanted to really talk about the frame of where the global community is headed and where SVP at large is headed, zoom in on where SVP Seattle is headed. Now let's take a step back and celebrate what we've done, because even through transitions, even through pandemics, we've continued to have impact into the community. And I'm super excited to celebrate 2 of our exiting multi-year investees. We have East African Community Services and Futurewise, which are both here with us today. And normally we would be doing, a great celebration and handing stuff off, and instead we're just going to do our virtual clapping and celebration on here. So I hope you all are excited to celebrate them and really dive into hearing their stories as we connect with some of their leaders. We're going to first start off with East African Community Services, and Munira, who's the executive director, was planned to be here, had a last minute change and couldn't join us. So I'm really excited to welcome Amir, who's the communications and grant officer, presenting on behalf of Munira from EACS. After more than a decade of providing naturalization and citizenship services to their community, they become deeply rooted and trusted resource in the Rainier Valley. Their history with the community has set the tone for their newly expanded education programs, aimed to reduce the number of East Africans dropping out of school by providing culturally responsive K-12 education programs that keep youth safe and help them succeed in school and life. How can you not get behind that? How can you not celebrate that? That's just such an inspiring mission and set of services for our community. So I'm super excited to have Amir here, and I'm going to turn it over to him.
Love, peace, light, and blessings to everyone within an earshot. My name is Amir Solkin, he, him pronouns, and again, I'm so honored to be here. So much has happened in 4 years. It's just amazing how the time flies. And I came into the to East African Community Services directly from the University of Washington. Bothell, finishing a cultural studies degree, a master's degree, and I was, there's a way in which I have a kind of deep connection to EACS because I myself grew and matriculated at the same time. So just so grateful to be here. Next slide. So I have, again, Manira was not able to be here because she's doing a lot. COVID has just really been a mess, and we've been running around to do whatever we have to do to make sure community is okay. So I don't have much time, but I'm going to go over the organization, our existing programs, and try to get some questions answered that SVP pre-sent to us. And then we're going to talk about the things that the future and the things that that we need as an organization. I give you Manira's love. She's my mentor. And I talk to her very often, and she wanted to be here, but she could not. She's doing the work of community. We are family always is our organizing mantra, and it captures the essence of the work that we do here at East African Community Services. Next slide, please. So our mission is to inspire East African refugee and immigrant families to achieve cradle to career and beyond success. Our vision for a transformed and a thriving generation of East Africans, and our values are strong youth and families, respect, equity, and empathy. Next screen, please. We have programs from pre-kindergarten all the way through college preparatory programs. We have our home visiting program, our after school and summer programming, our Strong Girls, Powerful Leaders mentorship program, the Youth Leadership Council, Math, Code, and Robotics, and the Promise Fellowship program. I'm gonna pull out a couple of these in the next couple slides. Annually, we serve more than 350 youth. Next screen, please. So Math, Code, and Robotics is really was made possible because of the ways in which SVP has helped East African Community Services to implement financial maturity, financial stewardship, best practices around finances, board governance, and I'll get into some of these things later, but opening our minds up to think bigger and to dare to dream bigger. Math, Code, and Robotics was made possible through a generous grant from Boeing, and it is all about positive class mobility in as little as one generation. So it is a cohort-based program for offering coding, mathematics, and robotics, and it has done phenomenally well. We're going into year 2 of funding. And so just really, it has been instrumental in helping our kids to improve their mathematics scores significantly and statistically significant at that. Next screen, please. Ooh, that looks a little weird. Sorry about the formatting here. We have a new program called the Promise Fellowship Program I wanted to highlight. And it is really a community-driven strategy to really help to stave off the kind of ways in which East Africans have sort of replaced African Americans like myself in the school to prison pipeline. In our immediate New Holly area, there's been a massive uptick in gang violence, and our women, particularly our East African mothers, came to us, as is always the case. Women make the difference. Came to us and said, what can we do? And we quickly strategized and made a program called the Promise Fellowship Program to really target and intervene in the lives of East African youth who are at risk for being incarcerated. Sorry about that typo there. Or those who are re-entering community from juvenile incarceration. We call those re-entry youth. There's a lot of programs that we do, from one-on-one mentoring to check-ins to book clubs to healing circles to reading competitions with prizes and high school and college completion and job placement assistance. We admitted 15 East African youth in our inaugural cohort. Next screen. I'm really proud about the Promise Fellowship because it shattered some of my notions of what it is to be a Black male. And so we have a bullet. I would never thought that people who were and I'm revealing my own bias, but young people who were sort of like into gangs or maybe engaged with toxic forms of masculinity would be involved with kind of like a book club. And so Harun Hassan won the Alchemist Book Club, and he just was able to personalize the storyline and talk about his experiences and his hopes and his dreams. So the Promise Fellowship Program is creating intellectuals out of people society would have written off as gangbangers. It is a sight to behold. So I wanted to highlight that one as well. Next screen. Our parent education programs are incredible. We believe that we can't do just state-of-the-art programs for young people without creating opportunities for their parents to learn and to grow. So our Parent Leadership Training and Advocacy Institute and our Wattajir Parent Support Group and our U.S. citizenship classes work together in tandem to create the opportunities for the parents themselves to go to the next level. Next screen, please. So at this present moment, we have about 140 kids on our waiting list for our after-school programs, which is an organizational record. So we had 320 youth on the waiting list, but because of a generous SVP partner and other generous donors, we were able to significantly reduce the waiting list from 320 to 140 young people. I mean, it's unbelievable. So that's just another level of immediate support and investment from SVP that made a significant difference in primarily English language challenged families being able to get culturally competent academic interventions, cultural interventions that their young people need to survive. Next screen. COVID has been devastating, as you all know. As somebody who just recovered from COVID about 3 weeks ago, I will tell you that this has been this disease has to be defeated. We created the East African COVID-19 Rapid Response Fund. To date, we fielded 3,000 community requests, fulfilling 75% of them. We have raised more than $300,000 via private foundations and government and individual donors and major donors to really get housing and food supports for our families. And we ran out of money almost as quickly as we raised the money. The demand for housing and food supports continues. SVP was also instrumental in this area. So thank you for that as well, helping to make sure our families can eat and not have worries about housing stability. Next screen. Questions. Let's go to the next screen. So there were questions that you, go ahead and go next. Okay, great. Significant structural improvements because of the SVP partnership in Light. We have implemented anti-racism, pro-inclusion and diversity strategies and professional development, bettered our youth and family training, advocacy, professionalized our board governance. Thank you, John Kaufman. I think I saw you, our SVP partner. John, if you're in the room, you're the man. The work that John and others have been done to really professionalize our board, help to structure our board subcommittees, and really the work around finance and accounting systems modernization. That was one of the most significant areas in which SVP has helped us. And of course, naturally then, everything else falls in alignment, right? We have a full-time fundraising and development department now. We have 2 minutes left. Oh, I just don't have somebody. Yeah, I'm running out of time. But so I'm going to zoom down to, can we go to the next screen? I want to go down to, there's just so many, I ran out of time, but we have tripled in size because of the initial seeds of SVP. When we started, I think we had a $300,000 budget. Today we have 20 staff. We have more programs than we know what to do. And we're planning to open up a center in SeaTac. Just amazing. Go to the next screen. Improving our relationships, improving our grant writing and fund donor cultivation strategies. Next screen. What is this? Shift. We've done a complete virtualization of all our programs. Another area of support from SVP. All of our youth and family programs are online. We've been able to give out 300 laptops, tablets, and hotspots to our families who could not afford them. Another gift of SVP investors. And we created the East African COVID Response Fund. Next screen. Let's see, sustaining our existing programs is next on the agenda, and also planning for growth. Gentrification has pushed our families further south. We're trying to not only open up our SeaTac Center in 2021, but looking to work with government, local governments down south to open up community centers in Kent and Federal Way. Next screen. And the big strategy for us as I close is working on a youth empowerment center that we own. So land acquisition, a capital campaign to help us to do, to get our own standalone center that we can't be displaced from South Seattle. It's one of the biggest things on our radar. Next screen. Next screen. We're gonna skip all this. This is just the stages of the community empowerment center. Next screen. Next screen. There's just stages and facilities for the center. I don't have time for that. Next screen. Next screen. One more time, next screen. So COVID-19 housing support in terms of what what SVP can do as we transition out. Continue to help us around COVID housing support and food support, helping us to sustain the gains in our K-12 education, our youth empowerment, and our math code and robotics program. And of course, our capital campaign to get our own building so that we cannot be displaced because of gentrification. I could go on, but we have grown tremendously because of SVP in our capacity to dream bigger, and our capacity to provide support for more families. The organization has, again, tripled in size and has implemented so many levels of professionalization, including data management. I could go on. This PowerPoint also will be made available to SVP so that you can get more. I apologize, I put too much in there in terms of time, but SVP, please send this out to anybody that wants it. There's just so much good stuff in there. We are better for this relationship, and we're just so very grateful for you being courageous enough to do the equity and anti-racism work and investing in nonprofit organizations that oftentimes are overlooked by dominant funders. Thank you so much from the bottom of our heart.
Amir, thank you for running through that. I mean, just a fantastic story over the investment cycle with SVP. And I'm seeing that in the chat windows, like so many different people have had the ability to get engaged and have impact with your organization through SVP and through the various ways that we can get involved. So thank you for what you're doing in the community. Like, really resonates as like one of the things that you went through around providing the technology support for people to connect in the virtual environment. Many of us take that for granted with the power and privilege that we have, the ability to give that to students so that they can be they can continue their education in this challenging environment. It's hugely impactful, and it's inspiring to be part of your journey. And we're glad that working with SVP helped you get there. So very much appreciate your time and very much appreciate your organization. Congratulations, and really excited to continue watching and being part of your journey post even post being an investee. With that, would love to move to our second exiting investee. Want to move over to Futurewise, and really excited to welcome in Alex Brennan, the Executive Director for Futurewise. Futurewise is a statewide public interest group working to promote healthy communities and cities while protecting farmland, forests, and shorelines today and for future generations. Futurewise's organizing and advocacy work, public education and legal programs, and the technical support they provide to local groups have become the foundation of good growth management in Washington. And knowing how much we all love the outdoors, especially during this time of pandemic, more than ever important to really be preserving the places that we can be outside and socially distanced as well as together. So super excited to have Alex here with us, and I'll hand it over to you to take us through your presentation.
All right, thanks, Bob. It's great to be with you all. It was so inspiring to just hear about the work that East African Community Services has been doing, and it's really great to see the range of organizations that SVP supports. So I'm really happy to be able to be here with you all to share the experience we've had over the last several years and the importance of the support from SVP for Futurewise and our work. I'm Alex Brennan. I'm relatively new as the executive director. I started back in 2019. Next slide. As Bob mentioned, we are the sort of land use policy shop for Washington State. So we work throughout Washington to encourage healthy, equitable, and opportunity-rich communities. And we protect our most valuable farms, forests, and water resources through wise land use policies and practices. Next slide. So there's a couple of key things that I want to share with you all. The changes that we've gone through as an organization over the last 4 years. This has been a period of tremendous transition for us. A lot of the things that I heard Emiko say about SVP really resonated with me. And then talk about some of the milestones and accomplishments during that time, and then where we go next and how you can help. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So in terms of how we've changed, I think that the biggest way to reflect that is the change in our board. And if you look at our board in 2016 and our board in 2020, the two folks that are in bold are the only folks that are still with us during that time. And that's really reflective of a tremendous transition in the organization. As you can see, in 2016, when we started as an investee, much of our board leadership had been with us since our founding in 1991. And we made a conscious decision that we really needed to make space for new leadership and new members of the board. And so we've had a conscious transition of those longtime folks off the board and new folks joining. And we have another cohort of 5 new board members that will be joining us in the first quarter of 2021. And so it's been a really important time. I think that also reflects a lot of changes in our thinking about what we need to do to be a successful organization. And if you can go to the next slide, I'll talk a bit about that. I think there's sort of 3 key areas that have been core to our evolution in that leadership transition. One is the reckoning with race and racism, the ways that growth management, land use policies, and zoning have contributed to racism and racial inequities in our communities over the years, and also the ways that those policies can be part of the solution, and figuring out both how we need to change our internal practices and the way that we partner with communities of color and with other organizations, and also how to deepen our understanding of those policies and systems so that we can be part of that change. Another big piece of that evolution has been integrating our work across the urban and rural divide. And I think, this is something we see as being such a divide in our politics and our society nationally, and that's really true in Washington State too. And we do a lot of work with communities and community partners in rural parts of the state to protect farmland and forest land, to protect natural habitats. We also do a lot of work in urban areas around affordable housing and preventing displacement, around coordinating growth with transportation. We haven't always been good about communicating the way that all of those issues are connected and letting the folks in rural areas know about the work and feel connected to the work we're doing in urban areas and vice versa. And so really trying to build that into all of our actions has been another important part of that evolution. And I think both of those 2 things have really led us to an increasing focus on addressing climate change, addressing racial and economic justice in our work, and addressing housing and housing affordability. And you'll see that more in the later slides. Next slide. But I also want to just make a shout out to SVP and some of the operational resources and support that you guys have helped, which have been really critical for helping us bridge this big transition and make it through this time. So as I mentioned, that board transition, a big part of that was developing board term limits for the first time and figuring out how to effectively make a transition in board membership, developing new strategic planning systems, new cash flow projection systems, getting connected to executive coaching has been a huge help for me as a new executive director. Getting support in securing our payroll protection program loan this year was something that SVP was hugely instrumental in. And I in particular want to give a shout out to our lead partner, Mike Fulton, who's just been a tremendous resource and advisor and help through all of this time. Next slide, please. So I want to quickly run through some of the accomplishments. I think there's a lot of really exciting work that we've been able to do during this grant period. Next slide. Probably the biggest of those, and I think one of the ones that's been so instrumental in some of our thinking and evolution as an organization, has been our work to lead implementation of the Seattle Housing Affordability and Livability Agenda. This has included passing tenant protections, doubling the size of the Seattle Housing Levy, passing a mandatory housing affordability program for the first time, and reforming the way that accessory dwelling units are regulated in Seattle. All of these things have in total will result over the next 10 years in 10,000 additional affordable housing units, 30,000 additional market rate units, and really increased access to communities of opportunity throughout Seattle. Next slide. We've also had some tremendous success during this time period in protecting our water resources around the state. One of the things that was happening is that people could drill wells unregulated and drill a deeper well and take their neighbor's water. And we won a Supreme Court decision, the Hearst decision in 2016, that for the first time required that new development needed to purchase water rights and couldn't just dig those wells. That then led to $300 million in funding to address water issues that the state legislature passed in 2018. And through our legal work, we've been able to make sure that that local jurisdictions continue to abide by this throughout the state, most recently with a legal win in Benton County. Next slide, please. We've also had a lot of success in protecting farmland across the state. 22,000 acres in Pierce County in 2018, 35,000 acres in Clark County in 2019. Next slide, please. And we also do data and technical assistance work with local communities and local governments around the state. I think one of the most exciting of those in recent times is our partnership with Enterprise Community Partners to develop the Home and Hope mapping tool, which is a tool, an open source tool that anyone can use to identify publicly owned land that can be used for affordable housing, preschools, and other community benefits. Next slide, please. Also wanted to just quickly give a sense of the scope of our work across the state for comprehensive plans. Next slide, please. You can see we're working on comprehensive, these are all of the comprehensive plans we were engaged in, all the counties we were engaged in 2019, for example, and we have legal cases in all of the blue highlighted counties. Next slide, please. Our state level advocacy also touches communities across the state. Next slide, please. You can see we were able to pass a bill to incentivize affordable housing strategies in local communities. The 15 cities highlighted here are doing that to make specific municipal code changes, but overall 52 local jurisdictions took advantage of those resources. Next slide, please. So where are we going next? Next slide, please. So a big focus for us right now is to make some major updates to the State Growth Management Act through our Washington Can't Wait campaign. It's really important that these updates get made in this coming legislative session, because starting in 2021, cities and counties in Central Puget Sound are going to be updating their comprehensive plans. And we need to get these changes in place before that happens to really govern the way that those planning updates are made. We're building a really big coalition to make this happen. This is a great way for folks to get involved. You can go to our website and go to the Washington Can't Wait campaign tab at the top to find out more information, sign our petition, sign up on our mailing list, and would really love to get folks from the SVP community engaged and get your support. Next slide, please. Another way to connect with us, it's our 30th anniversary and we are having a birthday party next week. You can also go to our website to find out more about this. The URL is also down at the bottom of the screen. I hope we can maybe share that out with SVP folks after the meeting too. Tuesday, 4:30, will be a fun short little program and a good opportunity to find out more about what we're up to. Next slide, please. And this, the state level work that I mentioned is again really leading into work we'll be focused on from 2021 to 2024 on these this comprehensive planning update cycle. These are the important regulations that define how our communities grow and change, and we need to make sure that our values are embedded in those plans. And we hope that you will work to partner with us and all the communities we're working with to make that happen. Next slide, please. And so again, thank you so much for your support. It's been such a tremendous help to have SVP as a partner throughout this time and have the the links here for information on those ways to get engaged that I mentioned.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. And I think just on behalf of all the partners, thank you for all the great work you've done to preserve this beautiful place that we all love living in, and for taking care of those in need to access it as much as the rest of us do. So I would love to just ask, before we close out, to ask all the partners to join me in a virtual applause for all of our exiting investees. So thank you guys for everything that you've done with us, and we're really excited to have worked with you on your journeys and to inspire us even through today. I would just this is the end. This is everything we had covered. I know we put a lot forward to you guys, and it's a lot to cover. Even as someone that's been part of the content creation and the formation of where we're headed, it's a lot to take in. And we know that it's a lot of big steps forward about looking at the entire frame of our community down into where SVP Seattle needs to go, and then looking at the day-to-day impact we've been able to have with two very important members of our community. As Emiko offered, I think, know that the door is always open. We're here to take the feedback. We're here to take in the ideas. One of the reasons I joined SVP is I saw it as an innovation engine, one that could take ideas and look at the needs in the community and really adapt to those. And I think through our imperatives, we're really going to focus on some of the real acute needs in our community that I'm excited to tackle together. So know that we're all here for you, and here as partners. I really appreciate Sudha's call to action and ask on behalf of the organization. It's important to support us as well as the investees. Really appreciate her doing so. Before we end today, we have one ask of everyone from a tactical perspective, which is we want to get to know our partnership better. We've been going through transition for 5 years, and there's a lot of familiar faces and names on here. There's also a lot of new people to our organization, and all of us have evolved in terms of what we bring to the organization, the impact that we've had over 5 years, as well as just what our interests are. So we're going to be launching a partner census survey coming out, I believe, this week. The link's going to be coming out centrally from our distribution from Emiko's desk. And we would ask that all partners please participate. Really what we want to do here is really understand a couple things, the impact that you're all having in the community, your interest levels and where you are engaged. And really this is what we were doing when partners like myself joined. I remember 4 years ago filling one out, and we just have not had the ability to come and really look at what's the makeup of our partnership. So that information is going to help us do better, serve you better, serve the community better, and really appreciate everyone participating in that when it comes out. And that is our final ask and call for action to the day. So Emiko, any closing thoughts before we close out for the evening?
Yeah, hold on, thank you. With that said, I wanted to thank the staff as well, who put this all together, particularly Natalie Place, who really just ran a rock star, really had done a ton of work, but Hannah Gregory, Heather Harden, Jenny Gerber, and Zach Grossnickel. This is, our external end of the year. And I want you to all know that while you hear from me and Bob and the board, that really it is the team that is doing all of this. And so just in recognition of all of the work that they want to do, I just wanted to public acknowledge that. Because they're just an incredible team. And so big thank you. And to the board, you get to hear from Bob and sometimes someone else, but the board is doing incredible work in service of the partnership, all of you, and and I cannot imagine starting this job without the board that we have, and you, Bob, specifically. So just a huge thank you. And so with that, and a thank you to all of you for joining. You are the reason that I took this job, as all of you. This is an organization built on people, and it's what makes it special. And I shared in my breakout group, but I'm looking forward to the imperatives and doing all this hard work, but I can't wait to meet one of you in person and give you a hug. So, so just deep gratitude and thank you to everyone. And I look forward to talking to you soon. And if I don't see you before the end of the year, big, Happy New Year, and look forward to connecting soon. And thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night, have a great weekend, and a great holiday ahead.
Thank you. Happy holidays.